The Cygnian oracle, a shimmering, crystalline lattice older than recorded galactic history, hummed a silent prophecy understood only by those whose minds could bridge the quantum foam, a prophecy of a coming void. A stellar convergence that would unravel civilizations. Far from such esoteric pronouncements, on the barren, airless moon of Xylos, a salvage crew leader named Kaelen rested with a far more immediate kind of void. The inky blackness of space pressed in from all sides, the only buffer his aging environmental suit, its seals groaning with every movement. He was a man carved from granite in grim acceptance, his face, illuminated by the faint glow of his helmet's XOD, a mask of stoic resignation. His fatalism was a shield, honed over years of scavenging the bones of forgotten conflicts and lost expeditions. Today's salvage, a derelict survey ship, was supposed to be routine, another handful of credits to keep his small, worn-down vessel, the rust bucket, sputtering through the void. But Xylos, a moon orbiting a newly discovered, supposedly lifeless planet, held a secret. And that secret was about to shatter Kaelen's carefully constructed apathy. A flicker of movement on his scanner, too deliberate for debris, drew his attention. It was close, impossibly close, in this supposedly dead corner of the galaxy. He turned, his movements economical, his hand instinctively going to the cutter tool on his belt. There, half hidden behind a jagged shard of metallic wreckage, was a figure. Alien. Tall, slender, with limbs that bent in ways no humans could, its form encased in a sleek, form-fitting suit that shimmered with an inner light. This was Lyra, a Cygnian. Her species, known for their multi-jointed limbs that granted them both incredible strength and delicate precision, were a mystery to most of the galaxy. She was on Xylos for reasons far graver than salvage. She was a guardian, a silent watcher over a truth buried deep beneath the moon's desolate surface, a truth inextricably linked to the coming stellar convergence and a powerful artifact known as the Omni-Lingual Key. As Kaelen approached, Lyra remained motionless, a living statue. He saw no weapon, but her stillness was more unnerving than any overt threat. Her helmet was opaque, hiding her face, but Kaelen felt a gaze upon him, intense and calculating. He tried to hail her, his voice a gruff rasp over the comms. "This is Kaelen, salvage up designation 734. Identify yourself." There was no verbal response, only a subtle shift in her posture, a minute adjustment of one of her multi-jointed arms, a gesture he couldn't interpret. Then, the ground beneath them shuddered violently. Alarms blared in Kaelen's helmet. The derelict ship they were scavenging groaned, its ancient frame tearing apart. A seismic event, unexpected, catastrophic. Or perhaps, not entirely unexpected to the silent Cygnian. Kaelen barely had time to register the incoming debris, before a section of the ship's hull, vast and jagged, broke free and tumbled towards them. His fatalism whispered acceptance of the inevitable, but then Lyra moved. The Cygnian Lyra exploded into motion. Her multi-jointed limbs, which had seemed so unnervingly still moments before, became a blur of silver and grace. She didn't try to outrun the colossal piece of wreckage. Instead, she launched herself towards it, her movements defying the clumsy constraints of a pressurized suit in near vacuum. Kaelen watched, stunned as she met the falling debris. He expected her to be crushed, a fleeting, tragic image against the stark lunar landscape. But her limbs, slender as they were, braced against the metal with impossible strength. The impact was a silent shockwave that rippled through the moon's surface. Dust and ice crystals plumed outwards. Lyra didn't buckle. She redirected the massive shard, her body a fulcrum, her limbs a network of living levers. The wreckage, tons of twisted metal, skewed off course, missing Kaelen by meters and crashing into a nearby crater with a deafening, silent thud that he felt more through the vibrations in his boots than heard in the airless environment. Kaelen stood frozen, his stoic facade momentarily cracked by disbelief. He'd seen a lot in his years of salvage, but nothing like this. The Cygnian then turned towards him, her opaque helmet still hiding her expression. She moved with an eerie, fluid grace, her feet barely seeming to touch the regolith. She stopped a few paces from him. Her head tilted slightly, a gesture he was beginning to understand as her species, equivalent of a searching look, since direct eye contact was something they reserved for moments of extreme aggression or profound intimacy. Kaelen finally found his voice, his fatalism momentarily forgotten in the face of such an extraordinary display. "What? Who are you?" he managed, his voice rougher than usual. Lyra didn't answer verbally. Instead, a small datapad materialized in her hand, seemingly from a hidden compartment in her suit. A beam of light projected from it onto the dusty ground in front of Kaelen, forming crisp, clear symbols in Galactic Standard. The message was simple. One must leave now. Greater danger approaches. Kaelen frowned. Greater danger? What danger? That seismic event. He gestured towards the settling dust from the impact. Lyra shook her head, a slow, deliberate movement. The datapad projected a new message. Not seismic. Deliberate. They are here. They? The word hung in the void between them, ominous and undefined. Before Kaelen could ask for clarification, his own ship's proximity alarm shrieked in his helmet. He looked up, his heart sinking. Descending from the inky blackness, sleek and predatory, were three unfamiliar ships. They were gunmetal gray, bristling with weapon emplacements. Their design was unfamiliar, but their intent was chillingly clear. These weren't scavengers or pirates, they were military, and they were heading straight for Xylos Secundus. Damn it. Kaelen swore. His fatalism was back, a cold comfort. Looks like my salvage run just got a lot more complicated. Lyra's head tilted again. Then, she did something unexpected. She reached out one of her multi-jointed hands, her gloved fingers slender and articulated in ways that were almost insectoid, yet strangely elegant. She didn't touch him, but gestured towards his ship, the rust bucket, which was docked precariously on a crumbling ledge of rock. The message on her datapad changed. Your ship. Is it functional? Kaelen nodded. Barely. But it flies, most of the time. He started moving towards it, the urgency of the situation overriding his earlier shock. Who are they? He asked, glancing back at Lyra, who was already moving with him, her pace matching his effortlessly. The Vanguard Concord, the datapad displayed. Kaelen's blood ran cold. The Vanguard Concord, a rogue colonization fleet, notorious for their aggressive expansionism, their brutal efficiency in seizing habitable worlds, and their utter disregard for indigenous populations or pre-existing claims. They were a scourge across the Outer Rim territories. What could they possibly want on a dead moon like Xylos Secundus? Lyra seemed to anticipate his question. The datapad flashed another message. They seek something hidden here. Something they must not possess. Her silent guardian role was becoming clearer. She wasn't just a random alien he'd stumbled upon. She was protecting something. Something the Vanguard Concord was willing to deploy a military force to acquire. As they reached the rust bucket's main airlock, Kaelen punched in the entry codes. The ramp hissed down, revealing the cramped utilitarian interior of his ship. It wasn't much, but it was home. Get in, he said to Lyra. One need to get off this rock before those vultures decide to use us for target practice. Lyra paused at the foot of the ramp. She looked back at the desolate lunar landscape, a silent farewell perhaps. Then, she turned and entered the rust bucket. Kaelen followed, sealing the airlock behind them. The familiar hum of the ship's life support was a small comfort. He rushed to the cockpit, Lyra following silently. The view screen showed the Vanguard ships descending rapidly, fanning out to cover the moon's surface. They're deploying ground troops, Kaelen muttered, his hands flying over the controls, bringing the rust bucket's engines to life. The old ship shuddered and groaned in protest, but the engines caught. Hold on, he said, not looking at Lyra. This might get bumpy. He pushed the throttle forward, and the rust bucket lurched into the air, its underpowered thrusters struggling against the moon's weak gravity. The Vanguard ships immediately registered their escape. Two of them broke off their descent and veered towards the rust bucket. Warning lights flashed on Kaelen's console. We've got company, he said, his voice grim. Lyra was a still presence beside him. He expected fear, or at least some sign of agitation. But she remained calm, her attention fixed on the view screen. Her multi-jointed fingers tapped lightly on the armrest of her chair, a rhythmic, almost meditative gesture. Kaelen gritted his teeth, weaving the rust bucket through a canyon of jagged rock spires, trying to shake their pursuers. Laser fire stitched across the space behind them, narrowly missing their hull. The old ship wasn't built for combat. It was slow, clumsy. Kaelen knew their chances of escaping were slim. His fatalism was a heavy weight in his chest. This was how it ended, he thought. Not with a bang, but with a whimper, chased down by a faceless enemy on a forgotten moon. Then Lyra spoke. Her voice, when it finally came, was not what he expected. It wasn't the synthesized, emotionless tone of her datapad. It was soft, melodic, like the chime of distant bells, yet with an underlying strength. Veer left. Through the ice geysers, she said. Kaelen glanced at her, surprised. Her opaque helmet was still in place, but her voice it cut through his fatalistic gloom for a moment. He saw the ice geysers she meant on his scanner. A treacherous field of cryovolcanic activity. Flying through there was suicide. Are you crazy? Those things are unpredictable. One wrong move and we're flash-frozen debris. Lyra's head tilted. The Vanguard will be more cautious. Their ships are larger, less maneuverable. We can use the geysers for cover. Kaelen hesitated. His instincts screamed against it. But then he looked at the pursuing Vanguard ships, gaining on them, their weapons locking on. He had no other options. All right, he said, his voice tight. Hold on tight. He yanked the controls, sending the rust bucket into a sharp turn, heading straight for the field of ice geysers. The decision to trust the alien, this Cygnian guardian, was a leap of faith he hadn't realized he was capable of making. The consequences of this encounter, this forced collaboration, were already far beyond a simple salvage run. They were now fugitives, hunted by a ruthless enemy, their fates inexplicably intertwined. And Kaelen had a sinking feeling that the greater danger Lyra had warned him about was only just beginning to unfold. The rust bucket plunged into the heart of the ice geyser field. Towering plumes of super-chilled vapor and ice particles erupted around them with terrifying randomness. Kaelen wrestled with the controls, his knuckles white. The ship bucked and screamed, alarms blaring constantly. Visibility dropped to near zero, the viewscreen a maelstrom of white and blue. Lyra remained surprisingly calm beside him. Her multi-jointed hands were not idle. They danced over a secondary console Kaelen rarely used, her fingers manipulating holographic displays with a speed and precision that made his own efforts feel clumsy. What are you doing? Kaelen grunted, trying to keep the ship from being torn apart by a sudden geyser eruption. Compensating for gravimetric distortions. Lyra replied, her voice a serene counterpoint to the chaos outside. The geysers create pockets of fluctuating gravity. I am stabilizing our inertial dampeners. Kaelen was impressed, despite himself. His inertial dampeners were notoriously unreliable. He'd never been able to fine-tune them properly. Yet Lyra, who had never set foot on his ship before, was coaxing them into peak performance. They narrowly avoided a massive ice chunk, Kaelen yanking the ship hard to starboard. One of the pursuing Vanguard ships wasn't so lucky. It blundered into the eruption, its shields flaring brilliantly before it was engulfed in the icy blast. When the vapor cleared, the ship was gone, likely crippled or destroyed. One down, Kaelen muttered, a grim satisfaction in his voice. But the other Vanguard ship was still on their tail, more cautious now but relentless. It fired a volley of energy torpedoes. Incoming, Kaelen yelled. Lyra didn't flinch. Evasive maneuver pattern Delta 7, she said calmly. Execute on my mark. Kaelen had no idea what pattern Delta 7 was, but he trusted her. Ready? Mark, Lyra called out. Kaelen threw the ship into a spiraling dive, a desperate move he would never have attempted on his own. The torpedoes screamed past, missing them by a hair's breadth. Lyra's guidance was uncanny. She seemed to anticipate the Vanguard pilot's moves, to understand the flow of the battle in a way Kaelen, for all his experience, did not. They burst out of the ice geyser field, the second Vanguard ship still in pursuit, but damaged, its movement sluggish. Kaelen saw his chance. He looped the rust bucket around a massive, floating ice asteroid and came up behind the crippled Vanguard fighter. Got you now, you bastard, he growled, lining up his ship's weak forward cannons. He fired. The shot struck the Vanguard ship's damaged engines. It flared brightly, then spiraled out of control, crashing onto the lunar surface below. Silence descended in the cockpit, broken only by the panting of Kaelen's breath and the steady hum of the rust bucket's engines. He slumped back in his chair, adrenaline coursing through him. They had survived. For now, he looked at Lyra. Her helmet was still opaque, but he could feel her gaze on him. Thanks, he said, the word feeling inadequate. You saved our hides back there. Lyra inclined her head. We saved each other, she replied, her voice soft. Cooperation was logical. Kaelen managed a tired smile. Logical. Right. He set a course away from Xylos Secundus, towards the relative anonymity of deep space. But he knew they weren't safe. The Vanguard Concord was not an enemy to be trifled with. They would be hunted. So, Kaelen said after a long silence, what exactly is on that moon that the Vanguard Concord wants so badly? And what's your role in all this? You're no ordinary, whatever you are. Lyra was silent for a moment. Then, she slowly reached up and touched the side of her helmet. With a soft hiss, the opaque visor retracted, revealing her face for the first time. Kaelen caught his breath. Her features were delicate elfin, with large, luminous eyes that shimmered with an otherworldly intelligence. Her skin was a pale silver, catching the dim light of the cockpit. But it was her eyes that captivated him. They were a startling shade of amethyst, deep and ancient, and they seemed to look right through him. She didn't make direct eye contact, her gaze resting slightly to the side of his face, a cultural quirk he was beginning to understand. "I am Lyra of Cygnus Prime," she said, her voice carrying a new resonance now that he could see her face. "And I am a guardian of the Krelter Archive." "The Krelter Archive?" Kaelen repeated. "Never heard of it?" "Few have," Lyra said. "It is a repository of knowledge left by a long-vanished civilization, the Krelter. It contains many secrets, including the location of the Omni-Lingual Key." Kaelen's eyes widened. The Omni-Lingual Key, the Rosetta Stone of the galaxy, a legendary artifact, said to be capable of translating any language, known or unknown. With such a device, the Vanguard Concord would have an unimaginable intelligence advantage. They could unlock the secrets of countless alien civilizations, decipher ancient technologies, and anticipate the moves of their enemies. "That's what they're after." Kaelen breathed. "The key." Lyra nodded. "The archive on Xylos Secundus doesn't contain the key itself, but a map to its location. My people, the Cygnians, took a vow long ago to protect the archive and the secret of the key. The Vanguard Concord has been searching for it for decades. And they finally found it," Kaelen said grimly. "Or at least, they found you. They detected a faint energy signature from the archive when I accessed it for a routine diagnostic," Lyra explained. "It was a risk, but one I had to take. The Stellar Convergence is accelerating." "The Stellar Convergence?" Kaelen frowned. "What's that?" "A galactic cataclysm," Lyra said, her voice tinged with a rare note of urgency. "A wave of exotic particles sweeping through the galaxy, destabilizing stars, rendering entire sectors uninhabitable. It is a natural phenomenon, but its effects are devastating. The Krelter Archive contains information that might help us mitigate its impact, perhaps even find a way to shield worlds from its path. The Omni-Lingual Key is crucial to deciphering that information fully." So, this was the doomsday clock. A galactic catastrophe. And Lyra was not just a guardian of some ancient artifact, but potentially a key to the survival of countless civilizations. Kaelen felt a wave of wariness wash over him. He was just a salvager, a man who made a living picking through the garbage of the galaxy. This was too big, too overwhelming. His fatalism whispered that it was hopeless. They were two fugitives in a broken-down ship, pitted against a powerful military fleet and a galactic apocalypse. "This is a lot to take in," Kaelen said, running a hand over his tired face. Lyra studied him, her amethyst eyes unblinking. "I understand this is not the life you chose, Kaelen. But fate has brought us together. And perhaps there is a reason for it." Fate. Kaelen had always scoffed at the idea of fate. He believed in luck, mostly bad, and the cold, hard realities of survival. But looking at Lyra, at her quiet strength, her strange beauty, and the immense burden she carried, he felt something shift within him, a flicker of something other than resignation. He didn't know what it was, but it was enough to make him say, "All right, Lyra of Cygnus Prime. What do we do now?" Lyra's lips curved into a small, almost imperceptible smile. "Now," she said, "we disappear. And then, we find a way to stop the Vanguard Concord and unlock the secrets of the Krelter Archive. Before it's too late." Their escape from Xylos Secundus was only the beginning of their perilous journey. The Vanguard Concord, led by the ruthless Commander Valerius, a man whose ambition was matched only by his cruelty, launched a galaxy-wide manhunt for the rust bucket and its occupants. Kaelen, using his knowledge of the galactic underbelly, navigated them through treacherous asteroid fields, shadowy nebulas, and forgotten hyperspace routes, always one step ahead of their pursuers. Lyra, with her calm demeanor and extraordinary abilities, proved to be an invaluable partner. Her multi-jointed limbs, capable of incredible feats of strength and precision, helped repair the aging rust bucket on multiple occasions, her delicate fingers coaxing life back into failing systems. Her knowledge of astrophysics and ancient languages was staggering, and her cultural imperative to experience every known safe sensation or emotion at least once led to some interesting moments. One evening, while they were hiding in the gaseous envelope of a brown dwarf star, Lyra turned to Kaelen, her amethyst eyes gleaming with curiosity. "Kaelen," she said, her voice soft, "I have been observing your human custom of humor. It is a fascinating emotional response. Would you demonstrate it for me?" Kaelen, caught off guard, stared at her. Demonstrate humor. I'm not exactly a comedian, Lyra, but you have experienced it, yes? Lyra persisted. My people believe that to truly understand a concept, one must experience it. Safely, of course. Kaelen sighed. He wasn't good at jokes, especially not under the constant threat of death. But Lyra's earnest curiosity was hard to resist. He thought for a moment, then recounted a mildly amusing anecdote from his early days as a salvager involving a malfunctioning sanitation bot and a very angry spaceport official. To his surprise, Lyra listened intently, her head tilted. When he finished, she was silent for a moment. Then, a soft, chiming sound emanated from her. It took Kaelen a moment to realize she was laughing. It wasn't a human laugh, full of boisterous guffaws. It was a delicate, melodic sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. But it was genuine, and it made Kaelen smile, a rare occurrence. That was pleasant, Lyra said, her eyes shimmering. A release of tension, a bonding ritual. I understand its function better now. These small moments of shared experience, of cultural exchange, began to chip away at Kaelen's stoic reserve. He found himself talking to Lyra more, sharing stories of his past, his hopes, his fears. He learned about her world, Cygnus Prime, a planet of breathtaking beauty and ancient wisdom. He learned about her people's deep connection to the cosmos, their reverence for knowledge, and their quiet determination to protect the galaxy from threats like the Vanguard Concord and the Stellar Convergence. He also learned to respect her cultural aversion to direct eye contact. He found himself unconsciously averting his gaze when speaking to her, a small gesture of understanding that seemed to put her at ease. But sometimes, in moments of shared danger or intense emotion, their eyes would meet, and Kaelen would feel a jolt, a powerful connection that transcended words. It was both unsettling and exhilarating. The forced proximity, the constant danger, and their growing reliance on each other began to forge a bond between them, a bond that was deeper than mere partnership. Kaelen found himself increasingly drawn to Lyra's quiet strength, her intelligence, her otherworldly grace. He admired her unwavering commitment to her mission, her refusal to succumb to despair despite the overwhelming odds. And Lyra, in turn, seemed to see something in Kaelen beyond his gruff exterior. She saw the wariness in his eyes, the scars of a hard life, but she also saw the spark of resilience, the capacity for courage and selflessness that he tried so hard to hide. Their journey was not without its setbacks. They had several close calls with Vanguard patrols. Once, they were forced to make an emergency landing on a desolate desert planet, their ship badly damaged. They spent days hiding in a cave, rationing their meager supplies, while Kaelen and Lyra worked together to repair the rust bucket. It was during this time, huddled together for warmth against the biting desert nights, that the turning point in their relationship occurred. They were both exhausted, their nerves frayed. Kaelen had drifted off into a restless sleep, haunted by nightmares of pursuit and failure. Suddenly, he found himself in a strange, ethereal landscape. It was a place of swirling nebulae, crystalline structures, and pathways of light. He was not alone. Lyra was there, beside him, her form luminous and translucent. They were not in their physical bodies, but as consciousnesses, free from the limitations of flesh and blood. They were in a shared dream, a vision. Kaelen? Lyra's voice echoed in his mind, not through his ears, but as a pure thought. Where are we? Kaelen asked, his mind struggling to comprehend the experience. I believe, Lyra's thought voice replied, we are touching the fringes of the Krelter consciousness. The archive, it is more than just data. It is a living network, a collective memory. It has reached out to us. Before them, a pathway of light coalesced, leading towards a distant, shimmering star. It is showing us a way, Lyra said, her thought voice filled with awe. A path to the Omni-Lingual Key. But it is not a physical path. It is a journey of understanding, of connection. As they moved along the pathway of light, images and sensations flooded Kaelen's mind. He saw the rise and fall of ancient civilizations, the birth and death of stars, the intricate tapestry of life woven across the galaxy. He felt a profound sense of interconnectedness, of belonging to something vast and wondrous. He also saw the threat of the Stellar Convergence, not as an abstract concept, but as a terrifying reality, a wave of destructive energy consuming everything in its path. And he saw the Vanguard Concord, their lust for power, their willingness to sacrifice anything and anyone to achieve their goals. But most importantly, he saw Lyra. He saw her courage, her compassion, her unwavering hope. He saw the depth of her spirit, the beauty of her soul. And in that shared dream, in that moment of profound connection, Kaelen realized something that shook him to his core. He was falling in love with her. The vision faded and Kaelen awoke with a start, his heart pounding. He was back in the cave, the cold desert air chilling his skin. Lyra was awake too, her amethyst eyes fixed on him, a look of wonder and trepidation on her face. They didn't speak for a long time. The shared dream, the vision, had changed everything. It had not only shown them a possible path forward in their quest, but it had also laid bare the hidden truth of their feelings for each other. The experience had forged an unbreakable bond between them, a bond that transcended species, culture, and the vast distances of space. They were no longer just allies forced together by circumstance. They were partners in every sense of the word. Their escape from the desert planet was fraught with peril. The Vanguard Concord had tracked them down, and Commander Valerius himself led the assault. But Kaelen and Lyra fought back with a newfound determination, their actions perfectly synchronized, their minds seemingly linked by the shared vision. They managed to cripple Valerius's flagship and escape into hyperspace, leaving the Vanguard fleet in disarray. The shared dream had given them more than just a path. It had given them hope, and it had given Kaelen something to fight for, something more precious than his own life. He was no longer the stoic, fatalistic Salvager. He was a man in love, a man with a purpose, and he would fight to protect Lyra and the future she represented with every fiber of his being. The weeks that followed their escape from the desert planet were a blur of clandestine meetings, desperate gambits, and stolen moments of intimacy. The shared dream had irrevocably altered their dynamic. The unspoken tension that had simmered between Kaelen and Lyra had blossomed into a deep, powerful love, a love that defied the odds and the prejudices of the galaxy. Kaelen found himself marveling at the small ways Lyra expressed her affection. She would gently brush her multi-jointed fingers against his arm, a touch that sent shivers down his spine. She started making brief, fleeting eye contact, her amethyst eyes filled with a warmth that melted his carefully constructed walls. And sometimes, when they were alone, she would hum a soft, Cygnian melody, a song of love and longing that resonated deep within his soul. Lyra, in turn, was fascinated by Kaelen's human expressions of affection. She would watch, her head tilted in curiosity, as he offered her a rare, genuine smile, or when he would instinctively reach out to steady her during a turbulent flight. Her cultural imperative to experience new sensations took on a new meaning in their relationship. She explored the human emotion of love with the same earnest curiosity and cautious wonder she approached everything else, her experiences deepening her understanding of Kaelen and herself. One evening, while hiding out in a forgotten asteroid belt, Lyra turned to Kaelen, her face illuminated by the soft glow of a nebula filtering through the rust bucket's viewport. "Kaelen," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "This emotion, this love, it is overwhelming. And yet I would not trade it for anything." Kaelen reached out and gently took her hand, his calloused fingers interlacing with her slender, multi-jointed ones. "I know what you mean, Lyra," he said, his voice thick with emotion. I never expected to feel this way again." He looked into her eyes, this time holding her gaze, and he saw no aggression, no discomfort, only a reflection of his own love and longing. "I love you, Lyra of Cygnus Prime," he said, the words flowing freely, unburdened by his former fatalism. Lyra's eyes shimmered, and a single, crystalline tear traced a path down her silver cheek. "And I love you, Kaelen of Earth," she replied, her voice filled with a profound tenderness. Their love, however, was a fragile flame in a galaxy teetering on the brink of chaos. The Vanguard Concord, under the relentless command of Valerius, was closing in. They had deciphered Lyra's connection to the Krelter archive, and knew she was the key to finding the Omni-Lingual Key. And the Stellar Convergence, the doomsday clock of their universe, was ticking ever louder, its destructive energies already beginning to disrupt interstellar travel and communications in several sectors. The Krelter vision had shown them that the Omni-Lingual Key was not a physical object in a single location, but rather a complex cipher, hidden within the consciousness of a sentient planet called Xylos, the very planet Xylos Secundus orbited. The key was part of Xylos's own planetary mind, a living language that could unlock all others. To access it, they would need to interface directly with Xylos. But Xylos was not a welcoming entity. It was ancient, powerful, and deeply suspicious of outsiders. And recently, its behavior had become erratic, hostile. The Vanguard Concord, it turned out, had already reached Xylos and was attempting to forcibly extract the Omni-Lingual Key, using a powerful psycho-acoustic weapon to disrupt and control the planetary consciousness. This was why Xylos had become hostile. It was in pain, under attack. Kaelen and Lyra knew they had to reach Xylos, not only to retrieve the key before the Vanguard, but also to save the sentient planet from Valerius's brutal assault. Their journey to Xylos was fraught with danger. They had to navigate through Vanguard blockades, outwit bounty hunters, and deal with the increasingly chaotic effects of the Stellar Convergence. Kaelen's skills as a pilot and a tactician were pushed to their limits. Lyra's knowledge of ancient stellar cartography and her unique Cygnian abilities proved invaluable. Her multi-jointed limbs allowed her to make incredibly precise repairs to the rust bucket in mid-flight, and her calm, analytical mind helped them devise ingenious solutions to seemingly impossible problems. During one particularly harrowing encounter with a Vanguard destroyer, the rust bucket suffered critical damage to its engines and life support systems. They were stranded in a decaying orbit around a gas giant, with only hours of air left. Kaelen, succumbing to a moment of his old fatalism, slumped in his chair, defeated. "It's no use, Lyra," he said, his voice hoarse. "We're not going to make it." Lyra knelt beside him, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. "Kaelen," she said, her voice firm but gentle. "Look at me." He raised his head, and she met his gaze directly, her amethyst eyes blazing with an unwavering determination. "We are not defeated. Not yet. We have faced worse than this. We will find a way." Together, her strength, her conviction, reignited the spark of hope within him. They worked tirelessly, side by side, using every last bit of their ingenuity and resourcefulness. Lyra, with her incredible dexterity, managed to reroute power from non-essential systems to the engines, while Kaelen jury-rigged a temporary patch for the life support. It was a desperate gamble, but it worked. They managed to restart the engines just moments before the rust bucket would have been crushed by the gas giant's gravity. As they limped away from the gas giant, their ship battered but still flying, Kaelen looked at Lyra, his heart filled with an overwhelming sense of gratitude and love. "You were right," he said. "We did it together." Lyra smiled, a rare, radiant smile that transformed her face. "We always will, Kaelen." Their bond, forged in shared adversity and tempered by love, had become their greatest strength. They were no longer just two individuals fighting for survival. They were a team, a unit, their skills and abilities complementing each other perfectly. Their love was not a distraction, but a source of power, a wellspring of courage and resilience. As they approached the Xylos system, they received a distress signal. It was from a small, independent colony on one of Xylos's other moons, a peaceful settlement of scholars and artists who had been displaced by a recent conflict in their home system. The Vanguard Concord, in their ruthless pursuit of the Omni-Lingual Key, had blockaded the moon, cutting off their supplies and threatening to bombard them into submission if they didn't provide information about Xylos. Kaelen and Lyra knew they couldn't ignore the colonists' plight. Their mission was not just about retrieving an artifact or stopping a galactic catastrophe. It was about protecting life, preserving hope. It was about fighting for a future where love and compassion could flourish, not just for themselves, but for all beings in the galaxy. "We have to help them," Kaelen said, his voice firm. Lyra nodded in agreement. "The Vanguard's cruelty knows no bounds. We cannot stand by and watch them destroy another innocent community." This decision, to divert from their primary objective to help the colonists, was a testament to their character growth. Kaelen, the once fatalistic loner, was now willing to risk everything for strangers. Lyra, the silent guardian, was embracing a more active role in shaping the fate of the galaxy. They formulated a daring plan. Kaelen would use the rust bucket to create a diversion, drawing the attention of the Vanguard blockade, while Lyra, using her Cygnian stealth and agility, would infiltrate the Vanguard command ship and disable their psycho-acoustic weapon, which was not only torturing Xylos but also jamming the colonist communications. It was a risky plan with a high chance of failure. But they were determined. Before they parted ways, Kaelen pulled Lyra close, his arms wrapping around her slender frame. "Be careful, Lyra," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I can't lose you." Lyra looked up at him, her amethyst eyes shining with love and resolve. "I will return to you, Kaelen," she said. "I promise." She then did something that surprised him. She leaned in and pressed her lips to his a soft, tentative kiss that spoke volumes of her love and trust. It was their first true kiss, a moment of profound intimacy amidst the looming chaos. Then, she was gone, a silver shadow disappearing into the darkness of space, leaving Kaelen with a heart full of hope and fear. He turned the rust bucket towards the Vanguard blockade, his jaw set in determination. He would not let her down. He would fight for her, for the colonists, for the future of Xylos, and for the love that had unexpectedly bloomed across the stars. Kaelen piloted the rust bucket with a desperate courage he hadn't known he possessed. He charged headlong towards the Vanguard blockade, weaving through a hail of laser fire, his old ship groaning under the strain. He wasn't trying to destroy the Vanguard ships. He knew that was impossible. His goal was to create a diversion, to draw their fire, to give Lyra the precious minutes she needed to complete her mission. On board the Vanguard command ship, the Harbinger of Concord, Lyra moved like a phantom. Her multi-jointed limbs allowed her to navigate the ship's narrow maintenance tunnels and ventilation shafts with silent grace. Her Cygnian senses, far more acute than a human's, helped her avoid patrols and security systems. She reached the control room for the psychoacoustic weapon, a massive, throbbing device that pulsed with an ugly, discordant energy. The weapon was aimed at Xylos, the sentient planet shimmering in the viewports, its surface scarred by the Vanguard's relentless assault. Lyra could feel Xylos's pain, a discordant symphony of fear and anger that resonated deep within her own mind. She had to stop it. Working quickly, her fingers flying over the control panel, Lyra began to disable the weapon. But Commander Valerius, alerted by the chaos Kaelen was causing outside, arrived with a squad of heavily armed soldiers. Well, Valerius sneered, his voice cold and cruel. What have we here? A little Cygnian rat scurrying through my ship. Lyra straightened, her face a mask of calm defiance. Your reign of terror ends here, Valerius. Valerius laughed, a harsh, grating sound. Brave words, for a creature so far from home. You and your human pet have caused me considerable inconvenience. But it ends now. The Omni-Lingual Key will be mine, and Xylos will bow to the might of the Vanguard Concord. He ordered his men to seize her. Lyra fought back with a ferocity that surprised them. Her multi-jointed limbs became a blur of motion, deflecting stun bolts, disarming soldiers, using her incredible strength and agility to her advantage. She was a whirlwind of silver and fury, a silent guardian unleashed, but she was outnumbered and outgunned. A lucky shot grazed her arm, sending a jolt of pain through her body. She stumbled, and the soldiers closed in. Meanwhile, Kaelen was taking a beating. The rust bucket's shields were failing, its hull breached in several places. Alarms blared, smoke filled the cockpit. He was running out of time. Just as he thought all was lost, he saw a flicker of light from the Harbinger. The psychoacoustic weapon, which had been pulsing with malevolent energy, suddenly went silent. Lyra had done it? A surge of adrenaline coursed through Kaelen. He had to get her out of there. He pushed the rust bucket's failing engines to their absolute limit, aiming his ship directly at the Harbinger's main hangar bay. It was a suicidal maneuver, but it was their only chance. Back on the Harbinger, Lyra was cornered. Valerius stood before her, a sadistic smile on his face. It's over, Cygnian, he said. You've failed. Just then, the Harbinger rocked violently. Explosions echoed through the ship. Kaelen had crashed the rust bucket into the hangar bay. Chaos erupted. Valerius, momentarily distracted, turned towards the source of the commotion. Lyra seized her chance. She launched herself at Valerius, her multi-jointed limbs a weapon of focused fury. She disarmed him, her movements too fast for him to follow. They grappled, a desperate struggle between the ruthless commander and the determined guardian. Kaelen, battered and bruised, emerged from the wreckage of the rust bucket, his blaster drawn. He saw Lyra fighting Valerius and rushed to her aid. Together, they managed to subdue the Vanguard commander. But their victory was short-lived. The Harbinger was critically damaged, its systems failing, and Xylos, freed from the psychoacoustic assault, was now lashing out, its planetary consciousness a raging storm of psychic energy. The very fabric of space around Xylos seemed to warp and twist. We have to get out of here? Kaelen yelled over the roar of alarms. The Harbinger is breaking apart? Lyra nodded, her face grim. And Xylos, it's unstable. The psychic backlash is immense. They fought their way through the chaos of the dying command ship, rescuing as many of the Harbinger's crew who were not loyalists to Valerius as they could, and made their way to the escape pods. They managed to launch an escape pod just moments before the Harbinger exploded, its fiery demise a funeral pyre for Valerius's ambitions. Their escape pod, however, was caught in the psychic maelstrom emanating from Xylos. They were tossed about like a leaf in a hurricane, their small craft buffeted by waves of raw mental energy. Kaelen clung to the controls, fighting to keep them from being torn apart. Lyra, despite her injuries, reached out with her mind, trying to calm the raging planetary consciousness. "Xylos! We are not your enemies?" she projected, her thoughts a beacon of peace in the psychic storm. "What came to help you? We stopped the Vanguard." Slowly, painstakingly, her message began to penetrate the chaos. The psychic turbulence around them lessened, the violent energies subsiding. The escape pod stabilized, they had survived. But Xylos was still in turmoil. The Vanguard's assault had deeply wounded the sentient planet, and the Omni-Lingual Key remained locked within its agitated consciousness. They needed to find a way to heal Xylos, to soothe its pain, before they could even attempt to access the key. And the Stellar Convergence was drawing ever closer, its ominous shadow looming over the entire galaxy. Their quest was far from over. The climax was approaching, and it would take place on the surface of Xylos itself, a world that was both their greatest hope and their most formidable challenge. Their escape pod crash landed on Xylos, not on the barren moon Xylos Secundus, but on the main planet, a world teeming with bizarre, bioluminescent flora and fauna. The air was breathable, thick with the scent of alien blossoms and damp earth. But the planet itself felt wrong. The psychic energies were still chaotic, the very ground beneath their feet humming with a discordant frequency. Xylos was a planetary consciousness, a vast, interconnected network of life, and it was in deep distress. The Vanguard's psychoacoustic weapon had left deep scars on its collective mind, and it was now lashing out indiscriminately, its natural defenses turning hostile. Giant thorny vines whipped out from the dense jungle, trying to ensnare them. The very air crackled with psychic static, making it difficult to think clearly. Kaelen and Lyra, along with a handful of survivors from the Harbinger, mostly low-ranking crew, and some captives of Valerius, who now pledged their loyalty to Kaelen and Lyra, had to fight their way through the hostile landscape. Kaelen's combat skills and leadership were crucial in keeping the small group alive. Lyra, despite her injuries, used her knowledge of xenobiology to identify edible plants and navigate the treacherous terrain. Her Cygnian agility allowed her to scout ahead, her multi-jointed limbs carrying her effortlessly through the dense undergrowth. Her attempts to communicate with Xylos were met with waves of pain and anger. "It's no use," she said to Kaelen, her voice strained. "Xylos is too traumatized. It sees us all as threats. There has to be a way to reach it," Kaelen said, looking at the pulsating, bioluminescent forest around them. "The Omni-Lingual Key is our only hope of understanding the Krelter archive and stopping the Stellar Convergence." Their shared dream, the Krelter vision, had shown them that the heart of Xylos's consciousness, the nexus where the Omni-Lingual Key resided, was located in a place called the Singing Grove, a sacred sanctuary deep within the planet's densest jungle. But the grove was now the epicenter of Xylos's psychic storm, a place of unimaginable danger. As they journeyed deeper into the hostile jungle, they encountered the displaced colonists from Xylos Secundus's moon. Their settlement had been destroyed by the Vanguard, and they were now refugees on Xylos, struggling to survive in the increasingly hostile environment. Kaelen and Lyra decided to help them, their group growing larger, their mission taking on a new dimension. They were no longer just fighting for a galactic artifact. They were fighting for the survival of these innocent people, for the future of a community. The colonists, led by an elderly scholar named Lyra, possessed a deep understanding of Xylos's history and culture. They told Kaelen and Lyra that Xylos had once been a benevolent entity, a nurturing presence in the galaxy. But the Vanguard's attack had awakened ancient defense mechanisms, twisting its gentle nature into something aggressive and fearful. "There is a legend," Lyra said, her voice frail but firm. "A legend of a heartstone, a crystal of immense power hidden deep within the Singing Grove. It is said that the heartstone can soothe Xylos's spirit, heal its wounds, and restore its balance." Kaelen and Lyra knew what they had to do. They had to reach the Singing Grove, find the heartstone, and heal Xylos. Only then could they hope to access the Omni-Lingual Key and save the galaxy. The climax of their journey was at hand. They led their small group, a mix of hardened survivors, desperate colonists, and a human and a Cygnian bound by love and destiny towards the Singing Grove. The journey was a harrowing ordeal. Xylos threw everything it had at them. Psychic illusions, monstrous creatures born from its tormented consciousness, treacherous landscapes that shifted and changed before their eyes. Kaelen fought with a grim determination, his stoicism now a shield for others, his fatalism replaced by a fierce protectiveness for Lyra and the people they led. Lyra, drawing strength from Kaelen's love and her own unwavering resolve, used her unique abilities to guide them, to heal the injured, and to counter Xylos' psychic assaults. Her multi-jointed limbs, usually a symbol of her grace and precision, now became instruments of desperate defense and daring rescues. Finally, after days of relentless struggle, they reached the Singing Grove. It was a breathtaking sight, a vast cavern filled with colossal, crystalline trees that pulsed with a soft, ethereal light, but the beauty was tainted by a palpable sense of pain and chaos. The air crackled with raw psychic energy, and the very ground trembled beneath their feet. In the center of the grove, they saw the Heartstone. It was a massive, multifaceted crystal, its light dimmed, its surface cracked and scarred. It was clear that the Heartstone was the key to Xylos' healing. But as they approached, a new threat emerged. A contingent of Vanguard soldiers, survivors of the Harbinger's destruction, had also reached the grove. They were led by Valerius's second-in-command, a ruthless officer named Kyra, who was determined to seize the Heartstone and the Omni-Lingual Key for herself, hoping to rebuild the Vanguard Concord. The final confrontation began. Kaelen and his group clashed with Kyra's soldiers in a desperate battle amidst the pulsating, crystalline trees of the Singing Grove. Laser fire crisscrossed the cavern, explosions rocked the ground. Xylos, agitated by the renewed conflict, lashed out with even greater fury, its psychic energies threatening to consume them all. Kaelen fought like a man possessed, his love for Lyra and his determination to save Xylos fueling his every move. Lyra meanwhile focused her efforts on reaching the Heartstone. She knew that healing Xylos was their only hope of survival. She dodged enemy fire, her multi-jointed limbs carrying her nimbly across the treacherous terrain. She could feel Xylos' pain, its confusion, its fear. She extended her own consciousness, her mind a beacon of calm and compassion in the raging psychic storm. Xylos, she projected, her thoughts reaching out to the wounded planetary mind. We are here to help you. We are not your enemies. Let us heal you. She reached the Heartstone, its cracked surface radiating waves of pain. She placed her hands on the crystal, her slender fingers tracing the fissures. She poured all her love, all her compassion, all her healing energy into the stone, trying to mend its broken spirit. Kaelen, seeing Lyra at the Heartstone, fought with renewed ferocity to protect her, to give her the time she needed. He dueled with Kyra, a desperate struggle of skill and willpower. Kyra was a formidable opponent, but Kaelen, driven by his love for Lyra and his commitment to their cause, managed to disarm her and force her surrender. As Lyra channeled her energy into the Heartstone, a profound change began to sweep through the Singing Grove. The chaotic psychic energies started to subside. The discordant hum that had filled the air softened into a harmonious melody. The crystalline trees pulsed with a warm, gentle light. Xylos was healing. The planetary consciousness, soothed by Lyra's compassion and the mending of the Heartstone, began to calm. The hostile flora and fauna retreated. The very air seemed to clear, filled with a sense of peace and tranquility. With Xylos healed, the Omni-Lingual Key became accessible. It wasn't a physical object, but a flow of pure understanding, a universal language that resonated within their minds. Lyra, her connection to Xylos now clear and strong, was able to access the key, its knowledge flooding her consciousness. The secrets of the Kreltar archive, the path to mitigating the Stellar Convergence, were finally within their grasp. The battle was won. Kyra and her remaining soldiers were taken captive. The colonists were safe, and Xylos, the sentient planet, was whole again, its gentle spirit restored. Kaelen rushed to Lyra's side. She was exhausted, but her face was radiant with a serene joy. He took her in his arms, holding her close. You did it, Lyra, he whispered, his voice filled with awe and love. You saved us all. Lyra looked up at him, her amethyst eyes shining. We did it, Kaelen, she corrected gently. Together, in the heart of the healed Singing Grove, surrounded by the grateful colonists and the awestruck survivors, Kaelen and Lyra stood united, their love a beacon of hope in a galaxy on the brink of change. The climax had passed, but their journey was not yet over. They now held the key to a new future, a future they would build together across the stars. The immediate aftermath of the battle in the Singing Grove was a whirlwind of activity. Kaelen and Lyra, along with Alara and the colonists, worked to tend to the wounded, secure the captured Vanguard soldiers, and assess the damage to Xylos. The sentient planet, now healed and benevolent, communicated its gratitude through gentle psychic pulses and vibrant displays of light from its crystalline flora. Its consciousness, now harmonious, offered them shelter and sustenance. With the Omni-Lingual Key unlocked within Lyra's mind, she began the arduous task of deciphering the Krelter archive. The information was vast, complex, but it held the promise of a solution to the Stellar Convergence. Kaelen stood by her side, offering his unwavering support, his former fatalism now a distant memory, replaced by a quiet, determined optimism. Their relationship, tested in the crucible of conflict and deepened by shared sacrifice, was now stronger than ever. In the quiet moments, amidst the hum of Xylos's revitalized life force, they found solace in each other's presence. Kaelen would watch Lyra as she worked, marveling at her intelligence, her grace, her unwavering spirit. Lyra, in turn, would often reach out to touch his hand, her amethyst eyes conveying a depth of love that needed no words. The universe, however, did not stand still. News of the Vanguard Concord's defeat at Xylos and the discovery of the Omni-Lingual Key spread like wildfire through the galaxy. Some hailed Kaelen and Lyra as heroes. Others, particularly those who had benefited from the Vanguard's reign of terror, saw them as a threat. The Galactic Council, a fragile alliance of various species, was in disarray, unsure how to react to these momentous events. The Stellar Convergence, too, continued its inexorable advance, its destructive energies now threatening several densely populated sectors. Kaelen and Lyra knew they had a responsibility to share the knowledge they had gained, to help the galaxy prepare for the coming catastrophe. But their first priority was the displaced colonists of Xylos Secundus's moon, who had lost their homes and were now refugees on Xylos. Kaelen, drawing on his experiences as a salvage crew leader and his newfound sense of purpose, took charge of organizing a resettlement effort. Lyra, using her connection to Xylos and her understanding of Cygnian societal structures, helped design a new settlement that would be in harmony with the planet's unique ecosystem and preserve the colonists' cultural identity. They chose a fertile valley, blessed by Xylos's benevolent consciousness, as the site for the new colony. With the help of the survivors they had rescued and the advanced technology of the Krelter archive, they began to build. It was hard work, but it was filled with hope. They were not just building homes, they were building a future, a testament to the resilience of life and the power of cooperation. During this time, Kaelen and Lyra made a profound choice. They decided to stay on Xylos, at least for a while, to help the new colony establish itself and to continue their research into the Stellar Convergence. They knew their love, their unexpected union, had a purpose beyond their own happiness. It was a symbol of what could be achieved when different peoples, different cultures, came together in understanding and respect. Their personal choice had broader implications. The story of the human Salvager and the Cygnian guardian, who had fought against impossible odds and found love across the stars, began to inspire others. It sparked a dialogue about interspecies cooperation, about the importance of preserving cultural diversity, and about the need for a united front against the common threats facing the galaxy. One evening, as they stood on a hill overlooking the burgeoning new colony, the twin moons of Xylos casting a soft glow on the landscape, Lyra turned to Kaelen, her hand finding his. "Look at what we've built, Kaelen," she said, her voice filled with a quiet pride. "Not just buildings, but a community. A place of hope." Kaelen squeezed her hand, his heart full. "We did it together, Lyra, just like always." He looked into her amethyst eyes, no longer needing to avert his gaze. He saw his future there, a future filled with love, purpose, and the endless possibilities of the stars. The immediate crisis of the Vanguard Concord was over. The path to mitigating the Stellar Convergence was becoming clearer. But Kaelen knew their journey was far from over. There would be new challenges, new threats. But as long as they faced them together, he knew they could overcome anything. Their love, born in the crucible of conflict and nurtured by shared dreams, was a force more powerful than any weapon, a light that could illuminate even the darkest corners of the galaxy. A year passed. The new colony on Xylos, named Serenity by its inhabitants, flourished. It became a beacon of hope in a galaxy grappling with the growing threat of the Stellar Convergence. Kaelen and Lyra, now revered figures throughout the settled worlds, had become instrumental in disseminating the Krelter knowledge, helping planets prepare for the cosmic cataclysm. The Omni-Lingual Key, accessed through Lyra's unique connection with Xylos, had fostered unprecedented communication and understanding between disparate species, forging new alliances and dissolving old prejudices. Kaelen, no longer the fatalistic Salvager, had found his calling as a leader and a builder, his stoicism now tempered with a quiet compassion. He oversaw the expansion of Serenity, ensuring it remained a model of sustainable living and cultural preservation. Lyra, embracing her role as a bridge between worlds, became a renowned diplomat and scholar. Her Cygnian imperative to experience sensations had led her to explore the full spectrum of life in the new colony, her wisdom and grace touching everyone she met. Their love remained the bedrock of their lives, a constant source of strength and inspiration. They had built a home for themselves in Serenity, a simple dwelling nestled amidst the bioluminescent flora of Xylos, overlooking a tranquil valley. It was a place of peace, a sanctuary where they could retreat from the demands of their galactic responsibilities and simply be Kaelen and Lyra, two souls bound together by an extraordinary love. One evening, they sat on their veranda, watching the twin moons rise over the horizon. Lyra leaned her head against Kaelen's shoulder, her multi-jointed fingers interlaced with his. "Do you ever miss it?" Kaelen asked, his voice soft. "The rust bucket, the thrill of the unknown." Lyra smiled. "Sometimes. But what we have here, Kaelen, this life we've built, it is a far greater adventure." She looked up at him, her amethyst eyes shimmering with love. "We fought for this, Kaelen. For love and for new life. And we won." Kaelen kissed her gently. "Yes, we did." He knew their fight was not entirely over. The Stellar Convergence was still a threat, though now, thanks to their efforts, the galaxy had a fighting chance. There would always be challenges, always be new frontiers to explore. But they would face them together. Their unexpected union, forged across the stars, had not only saved them, but had also helped to reshape the galaxy. They had proven that even in the darkest of times, love could blossom, hope could endure, and new life could flourish. As they sat there, bathed in the soft moonlight, a sense of profound peace settled over them. They were home. And their future, like the stars above, was bright with promise. Their story, whispered across star systems, became a legend, a testament to the enduring power of love to bridge any divide, to overcome any obstacle, and to forge a new destiny among the vast, beautiful, and often dangerous expanse of the cosmos. And so, Kaelen, the once stoic Salvager, and Lyra, the graceful Cygnian guardian, continued their journey, hand in hand, their hearts forever bound, their legacy echoing through the stars, a legacy of unexpected union, of fighting for love, and of nurturing new life in a galaxy reborn.